Hello everybody, welcome. I'm the Strategy Professor, and today we're going to be looking at the 7.13 patch notes and tier list video. So we're going to start off by just going over the patch notes themselves, and then we're going to go over my meta predictions, and then we'll go over the tier list itself. And I'll explain in depth how all that works. There's going to be timestamps in the description if you want to skip around if this is the first tier list that you've seen, so don't feel obligated to watch the whole thing. Of course, I'd love it if you watch the whole thing, but I do understand that this is probably going to be at least an hour long, and not everybody's going to have enough time for that. You can also access this Google Doc in the description if you just want to skim through it and see which section seems most interesting to you, or let's say you don't want to hear about all the patch notes, you just kind of want to quickly skim what I think about it. You can do that, and then just skip down and watch the section on the meta or the tier list, however you want to do it. And then for each champion on the tier list, well, not for each one, but for a lot of them, for like the top 20 or so champions on the tier list, if you click on, there's a little mini Google Doc right below them. It'll take you to sort of just a little snapshot guide. So it'll say who the champion's good with, who they're good against, who they're bad with, who they're bad against, recommended items for the champion, runes, masteries, and then if I have a full-length guide available for the champion, then I've got the link there. And I'm always adding new guides as well. So that's just real quick, give you a little bit more than just a standard tier list. Gives you some good information on how to actually use the champion and when to pick them. Okay. Let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so first up, let's go ahead and look at the honor system. Let me go ahead and bring the patch notes over here. Bring them up to the top. I think this is a wonderful idea. I mean, they tried to do the honor system like, remember when it was 3 seasons ago, but no one really cared. When it came out, it was okay, but it was really arcane, and it was hard to figure out how you got those badges. They wouldn't tell you exactly. Like, for instance, if you got honored by different people, then it gave you more points than if you kept getting honored by the same people or by your friends. You had to get the same type of honor every time, so if you kept getting honorable opponent, you might get something. If you kept getting I don't know, some of the other ones you might get something, but if it was split between the different ones, like maybe sometimes you were helpful, sometimes you were an honorable opponent, sometimes you had teamwork that people honored you for, then you wouldn't get a badge for diverse honoring. And one of the most annoying things for me was there was never a set number. You know, it was never, and that fits in with what I just said. So, for instance, you know, I have had like 400 honorable opponents or something. I mean, just let me go look. I can pull it up here real quickly and show you what I'm talking about, what the old system used to look like and why it didn't really matter. You may not even notice these things in the old system. They matter so little. But if you were a lower elo player, I think you got the badges faster. It was either lower elo or if you just played less games. So you were penalized for playing more games, and you were penalized for being a higher elo player, is what I felt like. So you could never get those badges. Hardly ever. So yeah, I mean, I had 426 teamworks, and I still don't have the badge. And I've seen people that had like, you know, 40 teamworks and got the badge. And so it's just kind of like it feels bad. Like, it's supposed to be something good, but it's just something that a lot of people don't care about. It's very rare to honor people. There's no real reward for it other than having that little badge over your load screen, and it's just, you don't understand what you have to do to get it. So that was kind of my qualms with the old one. It was a good idea, but the execution was very poor. This looks much better, and I don't know why this just looks so cheesy. The GG heart, it's just like that kid that's like trying to be cool or something, like in high school, that comes in and just like uses all this like pop slang stuff. I don't know. I feel like they're trying too hard with this. Like, these are fine. Great shot calling, stayed cool. GG heart just seems stupid. But anyways, whatever. Despite the names, I do think it's a great idea. It's like when they cuss, like on the broadcast or like in these notes. It's like, why? I don't know. It just feels like they're trying too hard to be cool on this. But anyways, whatever. It's good. So the categories got renamed. Doesn't matter. You can't honor opponents anymore, which is okay. Whatever. I think it would be cool if they kept the honorable opponent to see if enemy. But then how would they do that at the end of the screen? I don't know. I understand why they got rid of it. It's fine. But the thing that's cool is they have honor levels now. So you have certain levels of honor. So now you can actually level it up by doing stuff, which is actually really cool. It shows up in your profile. And it looks like you get something that shows up on your border, I think, in the load screen just by having a high level. And only one person can get the big honor at the end. So multiple people, you know, vote. If you vote for somebody, if everybody votes, then you get extra honor just for doing a vote, basically. And so this makes it to where it is kind of a unique thing where one person gets voted, you get reminded for it at the end of the game. And if you get honor level 3 and above, then you get loading flare, which is cool. And then you get key fragments, which don't really matter, but there's something. I mean, I have so many key fragments, I can't even spend all these keys. Which, I mean, is smart by them because, you know, that makes you want to go out and buy boxes. If you have so many keys, you're like, well, I want to figure out, like, you know, I want to use them. I mean, I've got 15 keys right now. I just never see the boxes, but that's, you know, that's how they do it. So, that's interesting to get the key fragments. Now, this is cool. You get honor capsules. It doesn't say when, but you will get them at some point, which gives you skins, which is cool. Exclusive rewards like Medieval Twitch and Grey Warwick. I don't like that they're getting these skins out of there, like that they're bringing these skins back in, because I really think that it's cool. These are like collector's items. They're really, really hard to get. But at the same time, I guess it's cool that they're allowing it to, for people to be honorable to get these very valuable things. So they're not making like exclusive honor skins, but they are giving you access to skins by doing it. So overall, I think it's great. You know, just as a general rule of thumb, if you reward good behavior, you're going to get more of that behavior. Whatever you reward, you're going to get more of it. A lot of times, it's just kind of human nature. So I think that rewarding people for being honorable is good. And you might say, well, what if I never get honored in this? You still level up just by voting. So even if you don't play something that's super flashy, you know, if you play Janna and just no one respects you ever in solo queue, regardless of how much you win the game, you know, you don't have to play something like Master Yi and go 20-0 for people to honor you all the time. Like, yes, they're going to honor the people probably that had a lot of kills in the game and made the big flashy plays, but you can still be kind of a fly on the wall, just be a Janna or something like that. Just silently do your job and win a lot of games, as Janna does, and you will still level up your honor just by voting on the screen. And it looks like, I mean, the big thing here is you will lose honor. It doesn't say this, but I believe you lose honor if you either get reported or get punished. I'm not sure. But it'll encourage people to try to keep an honor level of 3 so that you get these rewards. Whereas if you're raging all the time and you get a lot of reports or whatever, then now there's going to be an actual, you know, punishment other than... Now, I'm not sure. I'd have to look. I didn't actually read this. I don't know how punishes work. I'm not... Okay, so they're keeping their focus on the positive stuff, which is what I like. But at the same time, I want to know, how do you lose honor? And I think... It's not going to tell you, but I'm pretty sure if you get reported for stuff, now there's just one more reason not to report, and you're going to lose skins. So not only do you just get this little warning from Riot, and maybe get a chat restriction or whatever, now you're actually going to lose some of these potential rewards. So that's the thing that I hope for, is I hope people be less toxic, just because they don't want to lose access to those rewards. We'll see. I don't know if that's actually going to change it or not, but I think some people will think again if they know they're going to lose, you know, access to some of these rewards. So maybe, maybe not, but overall, I like it. It's a cool idea. It's more free stuff that Riot's giving out, so I approve of that message. Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to go on that long about it, but I just wanted to explain why I thought it was a good idea. Because I know there are lots of cynical people out there like, oh, who cares, or whatever. People are just going to be like gaming the system to get more honor and stuff like that. And maybe there will be some edge cases of that, but I think overall it's going to encourage people to be polite in the game, or if not to be polite, then to be at least outright, or not outright negative. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk champions here real quick. All right, so Galio... this might be the end of Galio. This is really bad. Really, really bad for Galio. They're knocking the daylights out of his base damage. They're taking it from 105, because this is what you max first. Taking it from 105 to 70. It's a lot. It's one of the powers of Galio, and most tanks that are powerful in any meta is because they get free damage from their abilities. They have high base damage abilities, and typically they can build full tank and still do respectable damage. And eventually Riot has to nerf the damage off of them. But yeah, you're going to need about 235 AP to break even, because some people I've heard commenting on this, on the PvE stuff, are saying, oh, it's not that bad. You have an extra, you know, ratio in there. You get more ability power out of it. Yeah, it is. It's bad. Because Galio, it's so rare for, like, what is he going to build to get this much AP? Like a top lane Galio. He can't even build Abyssal Scepter anymore, because Abyssal Mask doesn't have AP on it. Banshees or something, that's only going to get him to like 60. I think it's just he's not going to have, he's going to lose a lot of damage. He's not going to be building AP most of the time. So this is going to hurt his wave clear. It's going to hurt his all-in damage. Just going to hurt him all around. They also nerfed his armor by 3, which is not a huge deal, but still, that's like 12% nerf to his armor. So he's going to be taking, you know, about 12% more damage or so in lane from physical sources. And this one, I'm not really sure about, but I know that it's bad. So going from 1 second to 1.25 seconds gives your opponent another quarter second to interrupt your ult with a stun or something. So I'm pretty sure they can do that while he's channeling. So it gives more time for counterplay, which is bad for Galio. So, you know, I think it's going to be lights out for Galio. You might still see him summon top lane, but I feel like there are just going to be better choices. I still think that Shin's pretty good. And he might be the premier sort of. Shin and Gragas will probably be the premier tanks top now. Now, this is a big deal with Gnar. Do I still have him pulled up? I don't guess I have him pulled up right now, but this is huge. That's a lot of extra damage. I'm pretty sure he maxes Boomerang first. That's 40 extra base damage on Boomerang. This is also really big. His engage range is increased by 125. So he basically gets 25% more engage range. Yeah, I mean, that's huge. Because then that just lets you get closer to knock people into walls or to just do whatever you want to do to them to get on that back line. So I think that's massive. Gnar's already, like, all right. I mean, they did... let's go ahead and pull him up. I'm pretty sure they did buff him. Like, they've kind of buffed him a little bit over the last few patches, and it just, like, hasn't quite been enough. But you got to take note of that. When they just keep, like, incrementally buffing a champion, then over time it adds up. So the thing about Gnar, his itemization, like, he has good AD ratios on his Q, but a lot of his other stuff, I guess this has good ratio on it too. This is not really that great. So he doesn't have to build a lot of AD. He's kind of has free tankiness. He's just a very weird champion. Like, he has nice percentage damage on his hyper, so he kind of wants on hit. He kind of wants max health for hop. There's just a lot of stats that are kind of useful on him, but he's sort of weird. Like, because he can't really use... I don't think he uses, like, Trinity Force that well. He does like Cleaver a lot. He does like Frozen Mallet. So basically what I think is going to happen with these changes, I think he's going to be the new Kennen top lane. If that makes sense. So he's going to be the premier... He's not going to build the same stuff as Kennen, but he's going to be the premier ranged harasser. Split pusher top lane. I think he's going to get quite big with this. See if... Okay, here's his history. Let me see. Okay, so they buffed that. Okay, so this is where they buffed a couple of things. I think, right? No, 7-6. Okay. Okay, so they reduced his growth on Mega Gnar, Mini Gnar. So they increased it on Mini Gnar and reduced it on Mega Gnar. Okay. So you have more regen while you're just hanging out in lane. Okay, well, I guess they didn't buff him that much. I thought that they kind of tweaked him. This is like a small tweak. They allowed you to queue stuff. But I think he's going to be really strong now because Kennen had been that range harasser that was keeping other things like Fiora. I mean, you can't. Fiora is still really strong. You can't really keep her in check. But I think in solo queue even, he's going to be really good against things like Fiora, like Riven. He's even pretty good against tanks because he has that percentage damage on Hyper. So I think he's going to be pretty good. I think you'll definitely see him in the top lane. I think he'll be a top-tier top laner, especially in pro play. I mean, I think this crunch range is a really big deal, and this is really nice also. So I think he's going to take Kennen's place. I think Kennen's done. We'll go ahead and segue into Kennen here. This is what I think people will do. They'll go Cleaver, Mallet, Bork, and then tank items. Bork's actually pretty good on him. I don't like Bork on normal ADCs, but on him I like it because he attacks really fast with Hyper, and he has really good on hit. It's every third hit does that extra damage. And he really wants to gap close. So he really, you know, can use that movement speed very, very effectively when he's in Mega Gnar form to get close enough to knock people into walls and to chase him down and stuff like that. So he really likes the attack speed. He really likes the on hit. And he just has good interactions with the ultimate. So I think he's pretty good. I guess you might be able to rush Bork on him, but I still think Cleaver's probably where you want to be. And then Frozen Mallet's in there somewhere, so you can just stick to people and get a bit more tankiness. So I think he's very good with those three items. Yeah, so I think that... Oh, and the Doran's Ring nerfs also hurt Galio, so I think that Galio's going to be out of there, like I said before. Okay, so Kennen. I think Kennen's done. I don't think we're going to see Kennen anymore. So they basically just said no on-hit Kennen. Pretty much is what this did. Because this goes from total attack damage to bonus attack damage. And Kennen builds virtually no bonus attack damage. He just builds like Bork, Hurricane, Wit's End, just all this goofy on-hit stuff. And now he's not going to get any extra damage off of his W. Oh, I just noticed that too. The first time I read it, I thought this was enough. Well, this is really bad. Okay. I hadn't even noticed that before. Okay, so that's why he was so OP in team fights. I hadn't even noticed that Hurricane also applied electrical stacks. So you could just like chain stun an entire team with it. Okay. Yeah, he's done. That's massive, massive. And I'm glad they fixed that because that's like super exploitable. I don't come across this guy too much in solo queue. Like I knew that he got Hurricane, but I didn't realize that the Hurricane procs all of them. I thought it was always on attack, but it's on hit. Okay. Yeah, I was really OP then. I guess that's why he was played all the time in competitive play. But yeah, he's done. They gave him some more ratios, but who cares? I mean, no one's going to play AP Kennen, probably. It's not enough to matter. Lightning Rush, you're usually not running in and tagging a lot of people with that anyways. And you're usually saving it for an escape. This gets a little bit of an ability power ratio, but it doesn't matter. He's done. I mean, there's better like area of effect, like burst magic damage users out there. And he just won't get used. I mean, that's the bottom line. Also, the Rumble nerf a while ago, so that helps Gnar, because that creates a space for Gnar. So the reason Gnar wasn't played before, in large part, was because if you want ranged harass and a good split pusher scaler, you would just pick Kennen, top lane. So remember that, you know, champions always exist in an ecosystem. And a champion may not necessarily be bad, even though they're not played. It's just there might be something that's better than them that has similar tactical applications, right? So it's not that Gnar was necessarily bad per se, it's just that Kennen was much better at doing a lot of what Gnar did. But now Gnar can do this. And Rumble was also just gutted last patch. So that means that there is now a space for early game bullies top lane. There aren't many of them left because we got, especially at the competitive scene, we got rid of Rumble last patch, so he's not really viable anymore. We're getting rid of Kennen here. So who else is going to be your premier early game harasser? Teemo's not competitive. This does... the Kennen and the Rumble nerfs do help Kennen a lot in solo queue. Or not Kennen, Teemo. But I think Gnar is just going to be a better version of Teemo. Yeah, because I can't think of anyone else that would fit that paradigm of like ranged ranged harasser that's like good later in the game too. I think it's just Gnar. I mean, like, Renekton gains from that also, because he's an early game bully that's still really strong. So Renekton definitely gets better off of the Kennen nerf. Fiora gets a lot better. I mean, the hyper carries that are weak to harassment get a lot better off of that for sure. So a lot of the tanks definitely get some help off of that. But if Gnar steps up, then he's going to be even worse, because he's better at breaking tanks than Kennen is, I think, because of hyper. Yeah, I don't see what challenges him in early game harassment. Yeah, I think he's going to be really good. I think he's going to be a top 5 Gnar. Kennen's out of there. All right, Kha'Zix's nerf. I don't think it's going to matter that much, honestly. We'll see. This makes him a lot worse at team fighting. Doing 10 less damage across the board. And you have less scaling, but you do 15% more damage on isolation. So this makes you you need to assassinate more with him. Invisibility's longer. I don't think it's going to matter that much. It might hurt him slightly in pro play. It might make him a little better in solo queue if you can get those picks on people. It does make him better at early game trading in the jungle, I think. The 15% isolation bonus is 15% of 60 is going to be like 8, I think. No. 9. Okay, so that's about the same. So if you isolate on people, it'll be about the same damage. I don't know. He'll still be alright. It shouldn't matter too much. I don't think he's a top 5 jungler still, but, I mean, he's probably a top 10. Alright, Kindred, doesn't matter. Still bad. This doesn't solve the fundamental problems of Kindred. Like, they are giving her more damage. I mean, that's nice, extra damage on E, mounting dread. I'm pretty sure you don't max that, though. Although maybe people will try. I don't know. More stacking after the hunt. I really don't think it's going to matter. She just relies too heavily on stacking this, and a good, you know, enemy team or enemy jungler is just going to shut her out of her hunts, because they can see where it is on the map. So, this doesn't solve the main problems. The main problems with Kindred is she has no innate on-hit synergy. So she really wants to get on-hit stuff, right? Like, she wants Hurricane. She wants Blade of the Ruined King. She gets all this extra attack speed. But she no longer does percentage-based damage anymore, which is what made her a lot more viable in the past. And, like, attack speed champions in general aren't typically that great early on. And so she can get bullied out by all kinds of other people. Because attack speed's a really weak stat early in the game. Because it has no scaling on abilities. Usually. I mean, for example, like, Lee Sin's Warrior Enchant not only gives him more damage on his autos, but it also gives all of his abilities more damage. Whereas the attack speed that you want to get on Kindred is not going to give her wolf spells any more damage. I don't think, or like not a significant amount. So that's why stacking attack speed is typically really bad on most champions early in the game. That's why you see like 80 carries going BF sword first, usually before they get Zeal, because you really want that AD first. So the problem is she still has no innate on-hit synergy with any of the items that she wants. She doesn't have anything in her kit that does on-hit anymore. And mixed damage is just really bad for itemization. I know LS, you know, was predicting that Kindred was going to be really good 2 or 3 patches ago, and he was like, oh, the mixed damage is great. No, it's not, because it's not consistent. It doesn't allow you, like, yes, it gets around if they want to stack all of one kind of resist. So if they just want to stack, like, all armor, then yes, having some magic damage is good. That's not what usually happens. Almost always, champions are going to have both types. Most good top laners really want to get something like a Spirit Visage because it increases their healing a lot of times and just gives them a bunch of other stuff that they want, right? So, yeah, I mean, someone could just go Dead Man's Randuin's top lane, but that's pretty trash. Most of the time, they're going to go for an armor item and an AP item. The 2 best ones would be like Dead Man's Spirit Visage, typically. They're just going to get that anyways. So yeah, if your whole team is AD, it's nice. But if your team is mixed, as most teams are, it's not going to matter because they're going to have both types of resists anyways. But what it does do is it means that you can't get penetration anymore. Like, you can't get armor penetration with Kindred now because a lot of it's magic damage, and it's going to be wasted, and you can't build Death's Dance, which is a really big deal. Like, if these things actually did physical damage and you could heal off a Death's Dance off of your wolf, that would be really strong. But as of right now, you can't do that because this is magic damage and not physical. So I think that it really hurts her that she has mixed damage, and I think that having no on-hit synergy really hurts her. So I think they're just better champions all around. I've been saying that ever since they reworked her. Okay, Maokai, I don't think it's going to matter. The extra base stats are nice, but I mean, maybe people will play him top in the absence or like the nerf of some of these other tanks, but I still just think it's going to be Gragas Shin top. I mean, Sejuani might find her way up there depending on like team comps and like sort of what's going on, but this is too slow. Like, the R is too easy to dodge, especially at higher levels of play. So, I mean, it doesn't matter. Like, the game's going to be over by the time it reaches 3,000. It's going to take 10 minutes for it to reach 3,000 range. I don't know. He's still very weak in my mind, especially after they nerfed his sapling so much. Alright, Poppy. I looked over Poppy's kit again. She just doesn't do enough damage. They nerfed her too much. This helps, but I just don't think she's going to be better than any of the other top laners. I mean, she might be top 10. I just think that Gnar is going to slaughter her. I think that new Trundle is going to be really good against her. Renekton will push her around. Shin, Gragas, all of these champions either have more utility, they're tankier. She is really tanky. But she just doesn't do any damage anymore. So, I don't know. I mean, she's viable. I just think that there are probably better choices. Now, Rek'Sai is going to be a pretty big deal. Rek'Sai is already pretty good after those recent changes. I've been saying that she's going to be good for a while. People are now figuring it out. They have buffed her consecutively over multiple patches as well. Giving her more AD scaling. People still aren't building Death's Dance on her, though, which I think would be good. But they are starting to build a little bit more AD. You know, you're starting to see, like, Warrior, Cleaver, Rek'Sai builds. So people are starting to figure out that if you go AD, she just does a truckload of damage. It's very good. You don't want to go this, like, tanky, like, Titanic Hydra into, whatever, the health jungle item. Like, you don't want to do that. You want to get in there and do damage. I mean, she's a carry type of champion now. She has insane damage she can put out. So, anyways, these quality of life buffs, like being able to Q spells with the Q, like Q, U, E, U, E, Q spells with your Q, I think is helpful. So I think she's going to be really strong. I think she'll probably be top 5. Like, she might take the place of Kha'Zix as, like, the premier sort of mid-game damage assassin type of champion with some CC and utility. We'll see, though. She's okay. I mean, she's still pretty good. I don't know if she's top 5. Did I put her in at top 5? I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I've got her in at number 4. That's probably about right. I think she's good. This is going to help a little bit. Not a huge deal, but she's already good. People just don't know it. People are starting to figure it out. Okay, Trundle. I think this is huge for Trundle. Oh, I forgot to mention Shaco. Yeah, AP Shaco's done. Because it's bonus attack damage. So he's getting the Kennen treatment. So you have to actually build AD. So AD Shaco in the jungle... still going to be pretty good. I mean, that's some nice base damage. And you get extra damage based on the target's missing health. And it's physical damage. So that's going to go great with if you want to get some kind of penetration or lifesteal or something, then that's actually pretty good. So this is actually nice. I mean, most Shacos are AD Shacos now in the jungle, like Assassin AD Shacos, and that's what they want him to be. They don't want this stupid AP Shaco. I saw someone go like AP Shaco support, and we almost lost the game to him. It wasn't because of AP Shaco, but he almost got carried to victory, where he didn't even buy a Sightstone. I don't know. So I think that building damage and stabbing people. Okay, so they're not saying it, but they want to get rid of AP Shaco because it's really obnoxious. Just stacking boxes in a bush. So anyways, yeah, so I think this is really good for just your standard jungle assassin AD Shaco, but awful for AP Shaco. So he's okay. I mean, he's a specialist champion. If you're just play Shaco and you're really good with him, you can gain a lot of elo, but I wouldn't recommend. He's very hard to play. He's got a lot of weird things that he does. So I wouldn't recommend him for most people, but he can be good in the right circumstances. Okay, now Trundle. I think this is a big deal, and a lot of people aren't hyping this up enough. But like being able to chomp turrets is huge. It's a huge deal for top lane Trundle. Now it's not gonna help support Trundle because what support Trundle needs is lower cooldowns on the pillar. That was his whole thing. That was the whole reason support Trundle even existed in 2016. It's because of the pillar. Because you used to be able to get that pillar cooldown to like 5 seconds or something. It was almost 100% pillar uptime. And so it was a really good, you know, crowd control tool. But they nerfed him relentlessly last season. Okay, I'm not quite sure exactly what kind of quality of life this is going to make, but it sounds really good. But he can chomp turrets, so that's the big deal, is he can now take towers really quickly, because that was something that they took off of him a long time ago. So you just attack, chomp, attack, especially if you have a Sheen. He just demolishes turrets really quickly, so he can punish people hard for leaving the lane. And now you're getting increased regeneration at 25%. Okay, so some people said this is simply a bug fix. It is not simply a bug fix. It's all sources of regeneration. Okay, so this 25% for everything. So this is 25% off of his ultimate. It's 25% if he has like a Death's Dance or something, which we'll talk about here in a second. That's a lot of healing. It's 25% healing. Now I'm not sure if this stacks additively or multiplicatively with Spirit Visage. But, so in other words, I don't know if this would give you 55% or whatever the other number would be, health regeneration. But either way, it's a lot of regen that he gets. And so if you get lifesteal on him, it's going to heal for a lot. He's going to be very hard to kill. Because you remember, he takes all of the other person's stats, too. Let me pull him up here really quickly. You need a refresher on Trundle, because he hasn't really been that relevant for a while. Although, when I see him in games, like top lane or jungle, he's almost always good. Like, he's a big factor in games. Okay, so he heals when somebody dies. This is champions, this is Baron, Dragon, minions in the lane. Anything dies, he gets a heal for it. So, you know, if you kill a tank in a team fight, or if a tank dies somewhere, you're going to get 180 heal if it has 3,000 HP. And that's going to get amplified by your W and by Spirit Visage. So that's really good. Now, they had been thinking about buffing his Q damage, but they didn't do it. They were going to have him gain 40 AD. But you do bonus physical damage. And that's in addition to normally hitting them. So you do your normal basic attack damage, then you get the bonus damage. And if you have Sheen, then you get a Sheen proc. So those Qs hit like a truck when you're just sitting there spamming Qs on people. It does slow them down a little bit. And you get the bonus attack damage. So you reduce their AD by 20, and you gain the bonus attack. So he's very good against other AD champions top. Frozen Domain, so you get massive attack speed, 80% attack speed, and massive movement speed, and you get all that regeneration. And Pillar of Ice, so this is what you would probably max last if you're top lane Trundle, I would imagine. but it's just a good way to hold people in place and be disruptive. And his ultimate, of course, takes 40% of their armor and magic resist, so you basically get 40% armor shred. For 4 seconds, it looks like. So yeah, when you do that, I mean, this lets you tear through tanks, even non-tanks, just taking a lot of their stuff and healing for a lot. Just really helps you just plow through them. So I think there could be double lifesteal builds that could be really, really good with him. So if you go, for example, like Death's Dance, Hydra, I think that could, with Death's Dance, Hydra, Spirit Visage, you're going to be healing so much, and you're going to do massive, massive damage to people. I think it's really hard for me to imagine anyone that can duel that top lane. I mean, even something like a Fiora, I think, is going to have a really hard time with that, because he can reposition so easily, because he's so fast, and he can slow her down, and he can drop a pillar and, like, put himself up against that pillar so she can't proc that last vital, even if he's not near a wall. So I think there are lots of little tricks he can do to where he could even beat someone like a Fiora, or, you know, late game especially. I mean, he gets an 80% attack speed buff, and he's going to have a lot of AD. He's going to steal their AD and their stats. And he's going to be lifestealing just like insane. I mean, people think Fiora has good lifesteal. He's going to get like an extra whatever, because he's going to have Spirit Visage and the W domain healing and the double lifesteal healing and the ultimate healing off of that. Like, it's so much healing. It's just going to be really, really hard to kill him. So I think he's going to be a force top lane. If people figure out about Death's Dance. Now, some pros are already kind of figuring out about this. If we look at something like, now this hasn't even been changed yet. This is still patch 7.12 today. So the stuff that we see here is only for today. But people were starting to toy around. I mean, look at Dyrus here. He's got Death's Dance. Like, people were trying out Death's Dance. Dyrus didn't get it in that game, but there's a couple of people that are tinkering with it. So yeah, I mean, you could go Bork on him if you want to. You can go Frozen Fist. I do think that going some Sheen item is probably good, although you may not need it. I think that honestly, if you just go Hydra Death's Dance or Death's Dance Hydra, one of the two, and then Spirit Visage, I think you're going to be a beast. Like, you can go Bork, but he doesn't really have great on-hit interactions. I mean, yeah, you steal their health and you get a lot of attack speed, but I would just go for the Pound 'em build. Honestly, I think that if you go this build, you will shatter things in the top lane. That's my prediction. I think you'll be really, really good. Okay, Xayah getting a buff. It doesn't say how much. Scales down with attack speed. This is kind of like Lucian's Q, getting faster as you... I guess that was level up instead of attack speed, but... Either way, I still think that Xayah is really good. Some people complained, oh, the double daggers, I can't exploit that by double daggering, auto-attacking, and pressing E to instantly stun somebody. It's like, well, yeah, that was overpowered. But she still is really good. Like, she has massive range, massive damage, good burst damage in team fights. I still think she's very, very strong. Let's go Essence Reaver, Phantom Dancer, or Hurricane, Infinity Edge, and you'll just mow everybody down. Especially with Rakan, who I think is going to be one of the best supports on this patch. Okay, Abyssal Mask is interesting. This is kind of, they're trying to throw a bone to Gragas and Galio in particular because of the Doran's Ring nerfs. So now it gives you mana, which is good on both of those champions, instead of health regen. Magic resist is down a little bit, but health is up. I think that's a fair trade. I'm glad they got rid of his regen stacks. It sucks. But now you get Eternity, which is very good. So when you take damage, you gain mana, and when you spend mana, you heal per cast. So I think Gragas definitely likes this. But Galio, you know, with how he needs more AP now to actually do damage with his Q, I don't think he's going to like it as much. I think Gragas is probably the winner with this item. But I don't know. I'm not sure that it's going to matter that much. But it's an interesting choice. It's an interesting choice. I just think that it still is going to kind of be a lackluster item. It just doesn't have a home. I mean, yeah, Gragas, Galio. Maybe like a Sejuani top? Sejuani would probably like that. I don't know. It's a weird item. It's okay. Adaptive Helm, getting a little more health. It's alright. I still think it's pretty lackluster compared to Spirit Visage, but it's alright. Okay, now this is the one that I really want to talk about. This is a massive, massive deal, and I haven't seen anyone really talking about this yet. Everyone always neglects support. It's okay. But this is a big, big deal. 25 extra gold here. So that's 25% more gold here, and then 40 here. That's a third more gold here. Or 10 more gold here, which is a third more. And double the mana it was giving. Okay, so this is very, very significant, I think. I mean, it's not going to, like, change the entire support meta, but it's definitely worth thinking about for a second. So let's think about it. All right, so the main thing here is Talisman of Ascension. So I'll go ahead and pull that up. This item has historically almost always been a good item sometimes. Okay, so lately, people have forgotten about this item because it was too expensive. This is one that they've changed a lot over time, right? So they've been trying to kind of make it a little more viable. Been tinkering with it all season, right? So they've changed it like 5 or 6 times this season. But they're reducing the cost. So at the end of last season, they dropped it from 2,500 to 2,400. All right. Here, they changed around all this stuff. They made it kind of this passive thing. Okay, none of that really applies anymore. Oh, yeah, it does. Never mind. This. Okay, so this is when they changed it to give mana. The Elixir of Skill is very good, particularly, I mean, it's good on anybody. It lets you get your, and this is something that I've figured out that someone pointed out before, it lets you get your ultimate 1 level earlier also. So if you level up with Elixir of Skill, which you typically will level it up level 8 or 9, then you get to your level 11 ult 1 level faster, which is very significant for those mid-game team fights, right? So you get to that faster, and you just get 1 more point, which is nice. I mean, so it's good. I would say it's as good as Frost Queen's Claim. It's a little different because it's not a safety net like Frost Queen's Claim is, but it does definitely help you out with gaining more levels, because it's very, very rare for supports to get to level 18. You know, most games are done when you're at level 13 or 14, I would say, on average, but anyways, that's good. And they dropped the cost in 7.10. They dropped the cost from 24 to 2,400. They increased the base regen. Okay. They reduced it again here, the cost. And this was a pretty big one. They reduced it again. 200 lower. That's a lot. That's like 10% cheaper. That's a big deal for supports. 200 gold is a big, big deal for supports. Because you're just broke. You never have money. That helps a lot. And now, you gain 30% more gold off of it, and you gain a truckload of mana. I mean, if your mana pool is like 500 or something, and you have no mana, like you use your last spell to use all of your mana, you gain 75 back. I mean, most support spells, a lot of them are only around 75 mana. So that's almost infinite mana. As long as you're picking up these coins, right? So not quite infinite mana, but you see what I'm saying? It's a lot of mana that you get back off of these coins now. And whenever you get an assist on anyone in a team fight, you're going to be getting a lot of mana too. So this is excellent on champions that aren't going to be stacking, particularly that aren't going to be stacking a lot of mana regen. Rakan. But, okay, so is it worth it though? Is it worth it to get this item over other options? So the stats are garbage on this item, right? They're not that great. If we look here, you've got 45 armor, which is good. It's tanky. 175% base regen is awful. I wish they would trade that out for either more armor or health. If they did health, it'd probably be overpowered, but if they threw another 200 health on it, which is probably what that valuation would be. But it's got the CDR, it's got the armor. What's going on here? Oh, there's people talking about new champion. But compared to something like Eye of the Watchers, the stats are garbage. Because if you look at Eye of the Watchers, it has 35 AP. But it also only has 10% CDR. It also only has 200 health. So it's... I have the Oasis. Okay, we'll pull it up. So if you look at Eye of the Watchers here, it has the same health, has the same cooldown reduction, but it gets 35 AP, and you get the mana regen. I would argue that the blue coins are about as much mana as that other mana regen. On Watchers, that's kind of a push. It's similar mana management. So what it comes down to is this item worth just getting Eye of the Oasis, is what I compared it to, I guess. Is Eye of the Oasis worth getting instead of Watcher, even though you're going to lose 35 AP? Now, keep in mind that Eye of the Watchers, or Eye of the Oasis, is 1900, and Watchers is 2200. So you're getting 300 gold right there off the bat, cheaper. So it means you're going to get it up and running faster and save gold. So the real difference is 461 gold worth of stats, worth of AP. Now, in most of my games, I see that coin generates at least 400 more gold by 20 minutes. Than Watchers. And the reason is, in Watchers in lane, even if you have a lot of poke champions, you know, you have something like a Sona or a Nami that can proc it all the time in lane, that doesn't apply typically once the enemy comes back with a BF sword, right? Or just some, like, big item. Because you can't just walk up and, like, auto-attack harass a Draven, for example, who's got a BF sword if you're Sona. He's just going to hit you in the face and, like, knock off half your health. So your poke disappears. Your free stacking of the Spell Thief's item kind of disappears typically at, like, 10 minutes at the latest. And usually earlier than that. So it looks like you can stack up all of this, you know, gold early on with harassment with the Spell Thieves, but once you can't auto-attack people anymore safely, then you really can't do that anymore. And so you're just sitting there, just getting 2 gold per 5 because you're sitting there on 3 stacks and you just can't use them a lot of the time. So it's very, very inefficient, especially later in the game. Like, once you're out of laning phase, you can't just walk up and attack the enemy jungler a lot of the times, or walk up and attack their tank, you know, when they're level 13 or something like that. So you just end up running around a lot of the game and not using those stacks on Watchers. So the AP is, you know, it's not arguable that it's better than the stats on Oasis. Oasis stats are garbage. But can you use the money off of Oasis to compensate for that missing AP? And I would say yes. So right now, you know, by 20 minutes, it's already covering the cost of Watchers, right, in the current build. But after it gets changed in patch 7.13, you're going to be probably about 600 gold up. Maybe not that much, but like 500, 600 gold up. You're going to be up a lot of gold, and that only gets bigger and bigger as the game progresses. And so that lets you finish your items faster, right? So if you have an extra, you know, typically if you were 400 gold more, so let's say you get 1,000 gold instead of 600 gold by 20 minutes, which would be pretty standard. You know, now you're going to be closer to like 1,300 or 1,400 gold that you've generated off of this item by that point. And, you know, that means you're going to have, I said 600 gold here. That means you're getting your Ardent Sensors 600 gold faster. That's 1 or 2 backs faster than the person who got Watcher. Or you're completing your Redemption that much faster. Or you're completing whichever item you want a lot faster. So it slows you down for like your overall combat effectiveness for your first couple of items, because you're not going to have the flat AP once you finish your forward item. So that's going to hurt you around 12 to 15 minute mark or so. But then like around 20 to 25 minutes, you're going to start completing all of your items faster than the other support, because you're going to complete your second item probably faster, so you're going to be getting more gold, and then your third and your fourth item way, way faster. So you're going to reach full build much, much faster. So this is really going to put you at quite a large advantage, possibly like a full item advantage, if the game is otherwise even by the time you get to 30 minutes. So, and you get to start throwing out wards a lot faster if you go Eye of the Oasis. because it's only 1900. It's real easy to complete. You know, once you get Sightstone and once you get your whatever that thing is, the tier 2 gold item, it's just 250 more gold to complete it. It's so easy to complete. And that just lets you, you know, after probably your second back, you can just go ahead and start dropping all those wards in the enemy jungle. So you're getting 3 wards, usually 1 back faster. Also, when you get it, and I didn't even calculate that, but, well, not 3. You're getting 1 additional ward for 75 gold. But anyways, what this comes down to is this item is going to be really powerful now. Now, I don't think it's going to be powerful to the point where someone like a Sona would run this over coin or over Spell Thieves. Maybe the 35 AP is really, really good on Sona, though. But there are some champions that are kind of on the fence with different items, like Thresh, who right now runs Relic Shield, could very easily switch over and go coin and turn that into Talisman, Ruby Sightstone. That could definitely be a conversion. I think this is going to obviously help Rakan and Janna out a lot. They're already 2 of the top tier supports, I think, on this patch. And this is going to help them massively. It's just way, way more free gold in their pocket, way more mana in the landing phase. So the people who already use coin, which is basically just Janna and Rakan, are obviously going to get a benefit out of that. But I think that definitely Thresh will probably switch over because he really wants that that speed also off a Talisman so that he can just run up and get into flay range and then hook somebody. Or so he can help his team escape or whatever. So Thresh is definitely going to love this coin change. And other sort of champions that I think could be good with it might be Fiddlesticks, which sounds strange, but he doesn't... I mean, Fiddlesticks, you can proc the Spell Thieves pretty easily because you just throw crows on people. The AP is nice on him, but one of Fiddlesticks' things is sometimes it's hard to get close to people. First of all, it's hard to get close to people to fear them because it's only 575 range on the fear. But if you have a Talisman and you can just run at them, then it's going to be real easy. You just run at them, fear them, and then run away and your team kills them. Also, when you ult, you can Talisman to get closer, to get in range of people before you Hourglass. Because that's a big problem with Fiddle is sometimes you just can't move fast enough without Flash to, you know, keep your ultimate on top of people, especially if they dash or if they flash. If you Talisman, you might actually be able to catch them. And Fiddlesticks is just really dangerous in general. If you're trying to, like, ward in your jungle and someone just shows up out of nowhere, you can just fear and then pop your Talisman and boom, you're out of there. So I think that it's definitely something that could be good on him. The move speed around towers, obviously good for the same reasons. And the extra AD helps him survive when he pops in and ults. If, you know, they try to blow him up immediately before he can Zhonya's. So I think on Fiddle, it could definitely be useful. On Gragas support, it's a little more dicey. That would speed you up so that you can body slam or get into a better position for your ult barrel. Gragas kind of needs the tankiness of the Relic Shield line, though. So I don't know. Like, jury's out on Gragas. I'm not sure. He would like the extra mana in the lane, though. Because Gragas doesn't get a lot of mana regen typically early on. So getting those extra coins would be great. Although his harass is kind of questionable to begin with. The extra mana would help out Fiddle a lot, too. Because Fiddle can be a mana hog in lane. Like, throwing the crows doesn't use a lot of mana, but if you want to try to go for some more aggressive trades, like a Fear plus Crow Drain combo, that's going to really suck up your mana. And Spell Thieves, it just gives you no mana regen early. Whereas the coin will give you a lot of mana regen. So, my best picks, obviously Janna and Rakan will be the 2 biggest beneficiaries, but I think that Thresh and Fiddle will also benefit. Definitely Thresh from coin, and Fiddle is questionable, but I think he will, too, for Fiddle support. So, I think this is definitely a rich gets richer type of thing. I think Rakan and Janna are going to absolutely love that. Okay, so Tracker Knife in the jungle is another big one. This is huge for Nunu and Ivern. Really, really big, especially early on. Ivern is a big mana hog on his first couple of clears when he uses his passive to free the critters. So this is like 45% more. What is that? That's like 25% more overall mana regeneration. So that's huge. And don't forget, if these champions get Morellonomicon and they fight in the jungle, this counts towards Morellonomicon. So this is going to give 45 extra AP in the jungle off of Morellonomicon, because remember, Morellonomicon scales gives you extra AP based on your mana regen. And if you're in the jungle, you get that extra 225 mana regen, you're going to get 45 extra AP. So you definitely want to be fighting in the jungle if you can. Nunu, I think he probably gets redemption at some point. But anyways, very good for them. This is... the Runic Echoes people are not going to be as happy about it. But it's not going to matter as much. Restores 15% mana because you get all the extra mana off of this. So I think that's fine. Balmy Cinder, I don't think this is going to matter that much because you're losing a lot of health on it. Like, you're basically doing more damage. I don't know how much the cost decreased, though. Oh, here it is. Okay, 900 total gold. Okay, so you're losing 200, or it's costing 200 gold less. Let me see. Okay, it's basically the same, actually. So it's taking some health off of it. You're losing 12 total gold worth of health, but you get to finish it faster, and you do a lot of damage to non-minions. This is actually probably pretty good for someone like Nunu, so he can clear faster. Nunu obviously clears big camps fast, but he can kind of have a hard time clearing up like raptors and golems and things like that, because he doesn't have any AoE. He's just kind of single target. So I think this would be pretty good for him, and be pretty good for like Gragas, Amumu, stuff like that. So I think it's good. So it's a little bit less powerful. It's a little less slot efficient. But it's cheaper here as well. So it's easier to complete. And it does give you the extra health modifier to make up for it later. So once you complete it, this modifier doesn't completely negate the missing health. But the lower cost, I think it's good. I think it's a buff. I think it's going to help out the champions that I mentioned, especially Nunu. I think Nunu is a huge one. I think Nunu's already really, really strong in solo queue. And I think that both the mana off of this and the extra bonus from Bombies is huge on him. So I think that that's a pretty big deal. I mean, yeah, you don't. I was gonna say you could even get this on like Ivern, but no, you don't want to do it because you don't need the extra damage on Cinderholt. So yeah, huge Nunu buff is what I see here. Pretty good Ivern buff based off of this. Sunfire. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Same stuff. And they're not going to be hitting minions with Sunfire, so that's fine. Rift, get a little bit of extra gold. Whatever. Doesn't matter. I don't think. I mean, 75 gold. It's fine. Vision tooltip. Adding a random button? Come on, man. In blind pick and custom games. That's pretty troll. But whatever. Okay, so that just about covers the patch notes there. Yeah. So, what does all this mean? What is this going to mean for the meta overall? So, my meta predictions, I still think that enchanters are going to be really strong. I've had something akin to this section in the last 3 patch notes, but I just went ahead and put it here again just in case you didn't watch the last patch notes. Because not a lot has changed in terms of paradigms, like enchanters being really good, being better than AP and tanks in most places. There being some good tanks in some spots. Not a lot of that has changed, but certain champions have risen, and I'll go over that when I talk about the tier list here in a second. So part of what makes enchanters still strong is Ardent, Athene, Redemption, Mikhail are like 4 of the best support items in the whole game, and they're all really good on enchanters. And they're just so versatile, so you can get them in all kinds of different orders to respond to different game states. So if they have like an Ashe Thresh on their team and you're afraid people are going to get picked off, you can just rush Mikhail's. It's fine. Gives plus 20% healing. No big deal. You can go Redemption if you want early team fighting because you have a gen on your team. Because what would happen before is if you had to rush Ardent Censer, or you wanted to rush Ardent Censer, and you had something like a gen on your team, and no other champions really scaled off of attack speed, then you couldn't really use Ardent Censer because it would suck. But now you could say, okay, no big deal. I'll just rush Redemption or Mikhail's, and then I can get Athene's after that. And then just not even get Ardent until late game. So is Ardent really good? Yes. Most of the time you want to get Ardent really quickly. And I have a video here from the #1 Korean solo queue player talking about why Ardent Sense are so overpowered. And I have some math here for you to show you how strong it is. But you still have the option, now that Jin's becoming more popular, you still have the option of going for other stuff and still being pretty effective on someone like a Janna, even if you can't really leverage Ardent Sensor that well. And Jin doesn't leverage it well, if you wondered why, because he doesn't benefit that heavily from the extra attack speed. He converts attack speed to raw AD a little bit, but it's not a very good conversion rate, so you don't want to be getting a lot of attack speed on Jin. Okay. Yep. So just like I said here, pay attention to the game state. Typically, these are the scenarios where you would want the different items. So Ardent Sensor, if the ADC or other on-hit champion is very strong, so let's say you have a Twitch that's starting to get really strong, or a Caitlyn, or you have a Master Yi on your team, or maybe a Jax or a Fiora, Ardent Sensor can be really good. Conversely, if you don't have those types of champions, it may not be as good. Redemption, if you have a weak on-hit team, so like I just talked about, maybe you have a top lane, trying to think, so a lot of top lane, like a top lane Swain, a mid lane Zed, jungle Nunu, and bot lane Jin or something like that. It just stuff doesn't benefit from the Ardent proc that much. Then you could just go for Redemption and just try to get some early team fights going on, and that could be really strong. Mikhail's is another one. I've actually rushed this a decent amount lately. I had historically thought this item was weaker than other support items. Like, it's good, but it's just not, from a gold efficiency standpoint, it's not as good as the other items. But it's hard to put a price on just saving an ally from dying. You know, like, that's really hard to calculate. So it doesn't quite have the raw gold efficiency of something like a Redemption or like an Ardent Sensor. But in the right situation, it can be even more powerful just because it can save people from situations that nothing else could save them from, right? So if someone gets hit with an Ash Arrow, and enemy's just about to engage on him and kill him, it's not going to matter if, you know, your shield does an extra 30 shield based off of Ardent Sensor, right? They're still going to die from everyone dogpiling on top of them. But Mikhail's can actually save them. So there are definitely situations where Mikhail's can be really good. Okay. I think that tank supports are still somewhat weak. I think they're definitely better than they were, but they still have a lot of problems. So they still, like, Knight's Vow is very strong. Locket is definitely good now. Zeke's Convergence is still good, but the prevalence are, so a few things hold tanks back. Number one, Ardent Sensor is really hard for most tanks to use, and that is very, very powerful. Zeke's is okay, but Ardent Sensor is much more reliable. You just shield somebody and they get it. There's no cooldown. Zeke's, you have to wait until your ultimate's up and your team has to actually fight. There have been several times where I've activated my ultimate ready for a Zeke's and then team just like won't fight. So like on Tahm Kench, for example, just like using his ult really quickly and canceling it to proc Zeke's, and then my AD carry either runs away or team just won't fight or whatever. And so I feel like Zeke's is a lot easier to go to waste and to mess up, especially if you're not on voice comms with your ADC. Like, it's good, but it's not as good as Ardent Sensor. So I think that the tanks can be good, but enchanters just have a better suite of items overall, and I think that the plus healing stat in general is just really, really powerful. It adds an extra modifier to the scaling of enchanter supports that tanks just don't have. I mean, if you get tankier and the enemy's already not aiming for you or not killing you, then there's not really a point, right? Like, you know, if you ace the enemy team and you have, you know, 40% of your health left instead of having 20% of your health left, most of the time that's not going to matter, right? Like, maybe if you have to transition over and go fight Baron. So you do want to build tanky items and be tanky on tanks, but if you're already not dying, then you're just kind of wasting your gold and your time to build more personal tank stats. Whereas, like, Enchanter supports, they're so safe anyways, they don't have to build tank stats most of the time, and almost all of their items help improve the survivability of multiple people on the team. So not just you, not your own personal survivability, but the survivability of anyone, of all 4 of the other team members. So that makes plus healing and shielding much more powerful than getting just personal tank stats. So I think that Zeke's having that activatable is really good, and I think that making Knight's Vow more powerful is really good because that allows you to affect other teammates better, because that's something that tanks had lacked. This also gives the Knight's Vow plus Zeke's gives tanks cooldown reduction, which is what they've been lacking all season as well, because all of these Enchanter items give cooldown reduction, whereas like Locket doesn't. Knight's Vow used to not give it. Zeke's was just a garbage item that you couldn't even get on him. Dead Man's Plate doesn't have it. Randuin's doesn't have it. So tanks just had no CDR. But now you have CDR options. Zeke's is pretty decent. Knight's Vow is much better. So I think tanks are definitely better than they were a couple of patches ago. But enchanters are still going to be stronger. Ardent tanks, however, that I talked about on the last patch notes, are better than your average bear, though, because they can run Ardent Sensor in addition to Zeke's, and then that becomes extremely powerful. So that combination right there is enough to potentially overcome the plus healing and shielding that enchanters get, because now you're just going to amp up somebody so much that they're just going to be like one-shotting people, and that can be a really strong thing. The shielding and the healing from that Janna is not going to be able to keep up if you have an Ardent Sensor and a Ardent Sensor and Zeke's going on a 3-item Twitch. Those Janna shields just aren't going to stop that. So I think that there are a handful of Ardent tanks that are really good. I have experimented with a bunch of different ones, and these are the 3 best ones that I could come up with so far. So if you do Zeke's plus Ardent, you're getting 50% damage from the Zeke, so you're getting 30% attack speed and a 30 on hit, and Hurricane interacts with all of that as well. So I think Blitz is still good with it. I think Gragas is very good with it. Nunu and Alistar, I think, are probably the best 4 choices. So you would go, you don't have to go this build, but you could just go something like Zeke's, Ardent Sensor, Knight's Vow. Or you could start with Knight's Vow and then Zeke's and then Ardent Sensor. That might actually be the best way to do it, I think. So you need to be tanky first and foremost. Make sure you don't die. And that still has utility because of Knight's Vow. And then once they get a couple of items, Zeke's gets much better, and so does Ardent Sensor once you get levels and once they get items. That's probably the way to go. Pure tanks are not as good, I don't think. Some people always argue with and debate with me about this, but I think tanks like Nautilus, Braum, and Leona have problems because they can't get Ardent Sensor. So they do have access to Zeke's, but the cooldowns on these 2 are pretty long for Zeke's. Leona's a pretty good cooldown for Zeke's. You know, they're okay. They just don't have the plus healing and shielding, and they can't get a Ardent Sensor, so I just feel like they just don't have enough power. But, I mean, they can still be good. I just feel like they're a little further behind these 4 here. Now, I know that like Nunu seems really weird. I'll talk about Nunu in a little bit, but I think that Nunu is actually really good if you're versus a very passive enemy team. I think Nunu is a good counter to Enchanter plus tanks on the enemy team. And we'll talk about why in a little bit, as long as you have a hyper carry on your team. Okay. So non-Ardent Sensor AP supports are still going to be a bit weaker. They don't have any new toys. They have a lot of problems. You know, I think champions like Gragas, Lulu, Sona are going to be kind of the new AP supports. If you need AP damage, Fiddlesticks, we'll talk about here in a little bit, might be really good. Now, Ardent on Fiddle, which is what I talked about right here, this could actually make Fiddle a thing. Or not. Well, yeah, you can run Ardent and Talisman on him. So if you fear somebody and the enemy auto attacks them, then it's going to trigger a heal, which is going to give your ally the Ardent Sensor buff. So I think that can be potentially pretty good, because Fiddle doesn't really have a good keystone. right? So he doesn't really need Deathfire Touch because he doesn't poke that much. I mean, his E kind of pokes, but it's not going to matter. Thunder, he can't really proc Thunderlords in lane. So a lot of people go like Storm Raider Surge or something for his ult, but if you have Talisman, you don't need that a lot of times. But this would allow you to go Stoneborn. And I don't know. We'll see. I think that he likes everything on Arden. I mean, he likes the move speed. He likes the regen. He loves the AP. The plus healing and shielding is not that great, but it does apply to your drain. So it's okay. So, I mean, you could see something like Talisman plus Ardent Sensor on Fiddle and just run around and just like Talisman and just like run into people with mobility boots like 1,000,000 miles an hour and just gank them. Just run up and fear them and they're probably dead. If you just come flying into the mid lane going like 600 speed and just press Q on somebody, they're probably dead most of the time. If they're not, you can ult while they're feared and you'll 100% get your ult off. You know, 2-second fear is going to allow you to channel your 1.5-second ult. So I think that could be a true terror in solo queue. That could actually be pretty good. So we'll see. I think Fiddle is my go-to choice for AP supports, but typically you just probably build Sona and just build some more AP on her if you want a little bit more AP damage on your team. All right, I think that Death's Dance is going to be really good. I think it's still going to dominate with smart players. So on Riven, Fiora, other stuff, it's good. I think it's also strong on something like Lucian, Jhin, Xayah. Still a great build. So you go Death's Dance, Static Shiv, Infinity Edge, Quicksilver Sash. And like I said before with Trundle, I think that Trundle with Death's Dance plus Hydra is going to be disgusting if people figure out about that. I think it's going to be really, really good fighter top lane with a lot of utility. So I think that, I mean, like I said, he has a good matchup with Fiora because Fiora can't get to the other side of him because he can throw down a pillar and stop his last vital from getting procced. So I don't know how she beats him when he comes up with all of that lifesteal and just cues her to take her AD and just sits there and just beats the daylight out of her with his club. And like, you just can't kill him. I guess if she gets an Executioner's Culling, she might be able to deal with him, but I don't know. It seems rough. I think he's going to be good. AP Assassins are still going to be ridiculous. I think you won't see as many tanks in the jungle and top lane, probably. So, yeah, I mean, it's still going to be, you know, Kassadin, LeBlanc, Syndra, Katarina, Malzahar just taking over games. Fizz, throw Fizz in there, too. I think the Assassins are still just kind of out of control overall. So my top 5 for each role, and then we'll get into the tier list really quickly. I could maybe get this done in an hour and a half. It's going to be top lane Fiora, Gnar. I really legit think that Gnar is going to be a big force, at least in pro play, if not in solo queue. And I think he'll be really good in solo queue too, based off of those changes and based off the nerfs on other champions. So I think Fiora, Gnar, Trundle. I think Trundle's that high. I think he's really good. Riven is a little harder to play, and she's easier to deal with than the other 3, I think. She can still be really strong, but I think she also has more problems, perhaps, than the other champions. And Shin. So I think Shin will be kind of the premier tank top lane, but I still think that Gnar and Trundle and Fiora will just take him to the house. I mean, Gragas will still be good up there. Swain's really good, too. Swain just has an easy counter. Like, all you do is just get Executioner on either Gnar or Trundle or Fiora, and that's just, like, it for Swain, basically. So, yeah, I think those are the main top 5. I was trying to think. There was some, like, Camille, I think, could still be potentially good. I just think it's going to be the Gnar and Rumble, or the Gnar and Trundle show top lane, and Fiora. Gnar or Trundle is extremely easy to play too. He's just a right-click champion, like, basically. Gnar is a bit harder, but I still think he'll be really good. Okay, I talked about the mid laners. Jungle, I still think Zack's probably going to be the best. The Bomby Cinder helps him out a ton. He doesn't care about the regen. But yeah, they didn't nerf him at all, and he just still does just insane damage, insane crowd control, insane gank paths. Well, not insane damage, but he's just really, really good. He's still top of the class. Probably needs to be banned every game. Ivern, I think, is still really, really strong. I've been playing him a lot. He's wonderful. Like, he has a hard matchup against, like, Elise, Lee Sin, some of these early pressure junglers, but I still think he's fantastic, especially if you're a support main. I think he'll fit right in with Ivern. He's wonderful. I love him. I think Nunu is still really strong. Nunu could even be a little bit over Ivern now with these Balmy Cinder buffs. And the mana buffs. Because Nunu is similar to Ivern in that he's a good counter jungler. He doesn't have as many tools for team fights, so he can't just shield, and he doesn't have Daisy just beating on people. But he does have Blood Boil for the AD carry, which is really powerful. And he has, you know, snowballs in his ult and just some really good zone control. And there's no way you're taking an objective against a good Nunu. So if Nunu is up with his smite, no one can take Baron from him. So that means you can go up if you have to and take a riskier Baron, and there's just no way they're going to steal it from you if you do that correctly. You just start your chomp animation and then smite, and they both go at the same time. It's like a 1500 smite. There's no way the enemy's going to take a dragon or a Baron for you, which is awesome in solo queue, because how many times do you see it where, you know, you just killed 3 people on the enemy team, you run over, you go for Baron, and then just at the last 20% or something, Lee Sin rolls up and in this like Qs, it goes over the pit and steals it. It's not happening against a good Nunu, so I think that's wonderful. Rek'Sai, we talked about her. I think she's still going to be really, really strong. She's good. I mean, instead of Rek'Sai, I don't know. I think I need to put Elise here. Rek'Sai is powerful, but I think it has to be Elise. She's so strong right now. Like, being able to do that much magic damage is also really, really nice in this meta where we're going to have a lot of AD top laners because they nerfed Rumble into the dirt. And Swain can get countered by Executioners at higher levels of play. So, yeah, I mean, if you notice, all of these are basically physical damage dealers other than Shen. So I think having that magic damage is really nice. And she can just take over a game. I mean, she does so much burst damage, and she has some decent utility later on with her web. So I think she's really good. And then Master Yi. Master Yi is difficult to evaluate because sometimes he's total garbage. But if it's a good Master Yi player, he's just impossible to stop. So Master Yi could be anywhere from number 1 to number 5. I wouldn't put him much lower than 5. Because if a game drags on and there's a Master Yi in it, he's eventually going to take over the game. AD, I still think Draven's number 1. He just has such an oppressive laning phase. He's ridiculously powerful with Death's Dance. And he just scales super hard in the late game. If he ever gets a kill, he's really, really far ahead. Even if he doesn't, though, even if he doesn't get a lot of bonus gold, he still just completely crushes people with the damage that he puts out. So they have nerfed other champions. They nerfed Xayah. They nerfed Caitlyn to some extent. Those champions are both still really good, but Draven is just clearly at the top of the food chain in my mind. Twitch is another one who's also at the top of the food chain. The only reason Draven is a little bit higher is because Draven crushes Twitch in lane. So if Draven's banned and someone picks Twitch, it's bad news bears. But if Draven is up, Draven can beat the daylights out of Twitch. So, like, Twitch just shows up from being invisible, and Draven just, like, 2-shots him probably in the mid-game. Xayah is another one that I think is really powerful. They just buffed her a little bit on this patch, and she doesn't have as much utility as some other ones, although she can dodge stuff, which is really nice with her ult. But anytime I just see a Xayah in a game, she just does a crazy amount of damage if she goes Essence Reaver and then some attack speed item and Infinity Edge. And I feel like it's just really hard to lose, especially if you have a Rakan on your team or a Janna, something like that. I think that Xayah is just really strong. Caitlyn's still really good. She does a ton of damage. I mean, some people might have Caitlyn up at number 1. It depends. I've seen some really bad Caitlyns too. Like, it doesn't seem like Caitlyn would be hard to play, but she kind of is. I think she's the hardest of the top 5 to play. And I used to think she was easy because she has such huge attack range and whatever, but you'd be so surprised how much people mess her up. Like, I've seen Caitlyn just not even put down traps in the laning phase. That's like one of her whole things. But a good Caitlyn that's putting down traps and that can combo correctly does crazy damage. You have to know the combo too, right? So if they step on the trap, you auto attack him, net backwards, Q while you're netting backwards, and then auto attack him again. So that you get 2 headshots in there and 2 big abilities in there. So, but there are so many times where someone just steps on a trap and Caitlyn might headshot him. She might not. But very rarely do you see someone go for the headshot net Q headshot combo, because that'll just about one-shot somebody. So Caitlyn is very, like, a good Caitlyn is very nasty if you have some kind of engaged champion. So you have a Thresh that hooks somebody and Caitlyn puts a trap under him. It's lights out a lot of the time. So Caitlyn has the potential to be #1, but in actual practice, I think that she's just harder to execute, and she needs more items than these two. Or these 3, rather. And the misfortune I have on here is just kind of my, like, real noob, well, not noob friendly, but, like, she's just a good autofill ADC. And she's just really good at team fights. I mean, you just press R and just kill an enemy team, you know, late game. So that's why I have her up there. I think that she's always relevant in a game, or it feels like it. If you don't crowd control her and a team fight breaks out, she's going to win the team fight. And she has some pretty decent scaling and utility, and she has really good lane harass early on. So I like her. Someone could put Jhin theoretically at #5. I just don't like Jhin that much. He's too skill shot reliant. People have to really hit their W's. They have to hit their ult shots. And I know he's getting very popular again, but I really not a huge fan of that champion. Lucian, people might put up here too. I don't like Lucian. He only has 500 range. That's why he's very rarely played as an ADC in pro play. If you never noticed that, is because he has 500 range. He's played mid lane and he's played top lane sometimes, because then he tries to bully out, you know, other champions one-on-one. But he's not facing people like Caitlyn who have 650 range. So I don't know. I mean, you could put Lucian there, you could put Jhin there. I think that Misfortune's better than those two. Varus is another one, or Ashe. Ashe is very skill shot dependent. You have to hit the arrows, and Varus also, you need to be able to hit your poke, and you need to be able to hit your ultimate. So I just think Misfortune is just a lot more reliable. All of these champions are pretty reliable. It's very difficult to mess them up, and they have very high damage and scaling. Okay, let's talk about the support tier list here. I'll try not to get this to take too long, because I do want to start streaming here in a little bit. But I'll talk about some of the major movers and shakers. Okay, so after playing on the patch, I have shuffled it up again, so this is different. I can compare to what 7.12 was. Let me pull up 7.12 here real quick, so you can just kind of see where stuff has moved. I could start working that in, where I could, like, put in parentheses, like, -1 or +1 or plus whatever. Maybe I'll go back through and do that just so you can see it. So, for example, I'm not going to go do it right now, but maybe I can do that. It wouldn't take too long, and it'd give you some context just to make the guides that much better. So if you look at 7.12, so we have several people looking at 7.12 right now. If you look at 7.12, it did shift around quite a bit from 7.12. So what are the big moves? Well, Janna's at the top of the list again. So we have Janna. Janna's at the top of the list. The reason for this is her itemization is just so good. Like, Athene's is not the best on her, and that's why I had her a little bit lower. But just running mobility boots plus Eye of the Oasis is just so cheap, and that gets your 4 wards online really quickly. She's very fast with her W, and she still does all of the great Janna things, right? She's just the master of the Clown Fiesta. She saves people from situations no one else could get saved from. She scales really heavy with plus healing and shielding. She scales really heavy with your AD carry by giving them extra AD, which is good on even on champions like Jhin who don't like attack speed that much. The raw AD is still very good on them. So she's just awesome. She's very hard to deal with, extremely powerful champion. And I think she's just a good user of mobility plus Eye of the Oasis, which is the cheapest you can possibly get for getting 4 wards and running around the map and warding everything. So she's the Vision Queen. She's the Clown Fiesta Queen. She's just great. She's the person to beat. All right, Rakan is someone that kind of came out of nowhere, for me anyways. I just tried him out one day. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go with it. Because I needed an engaged champion. Because one thing that I have been lacking in my repertoire here, and my champions that I play, is like an engaged champion. So what do I do if my team picks Lucian and their team picks Twitch? That's the one situation that I don't want to pick Janna into, is if they have a much higher scaling AD carry. And so the question becomes, well, what do I do with that? I need something that can get on that Twitch. You can do Blitzcrank, but that's, for me, Blitz is really risky. Like, I'm recognizing that he's a top tier champion, because he is. He's very good against other enchanters. But for me, if you miss that hook, and I have been playing him more lately, and when I have one of those off games where I'm just like not hitting hooks, I just feel completely worthless. Like, there's just almost nothing I can do. Whereas like with Janna, if I miss a tornado or two or something like that, it's usually not that big of a deal, because there's so many other useful things about Janna. Or if I miss a shield or two, like it's not a huge deal. But with Blitz, if you miss that hook, the rest of his kit is just garbage most of the time. So Blitz can be really strong, but I don't like him as a reliable engage as much. And other answers would be like Gragas. But if you miss your barrel on Gragas, it sucks. It's really bad. If you end up blowing them back, or if they flash it or something, it's really bad. But Rakan, here, let me pull him up here really quickly. Rakan, to me, feels much, much more reliable than a lot of other tanks, and he gets around some of these problems that I've been complaining about with tanks the entire season, mainly that they're not tanky enough, right? So a big problem with tanks historically this season is that they've had to get things like redemption. That's no longer the case, really, so they can get real tank items. But now they just don't have the utility, right? So that's the big thing, is they can't get Ardent Sensor. They can get ZZ, but it's more conditional. Like, their itemization is just not as good. They don't scale with plus healing and shielding that well. However, Rakan does. He does have really high AP ratios on stuff. You don't typically get a lot of AP on him, but Ardent Sensor is wonderful on him, because he has a 0.8 on his passive, and he has a 0.8 on his ult, and he has a 0.7, or a 0.8 rather, on his shield, a 0.7 on his Q. So he actually does like AP, so he can go Ardent Sensor. Alright? But the problem with other tanks like Gragas, if you rush Ardent Sensor, you're really squishy. And you are squishy on Rakan also. But you don't have to stay in the fight. If Gragas goes in with his belly slam, he's not getting out a lot of times. Like, you can walk out, sort of, if you have to. But a lot of times, it's harder for him to get away. With Rakan, you can get away, and you can reposition a lot in fights, right? So you go in with your grand entrance, and you can usually dash back out to other people and spread some shields around while you're doing that. And you do get a nice little shield to help you out. It's not a huge deal, but it's nice to have this little bit of extra shield on it. And he can heal himself with this a little bit, and whoever you dash to. So he's just highly mobile, and he's really good at starting fights and making plays. So one of the most reliable things, I think, is, you know, you just press Alt, flash W into a fight, and it's almost certainly, that happens so fast, that people just don't dodge it most of the time. Now, some people will dodge it, but it's pretty reliable to go in there and tag not just one person, but you can get all 4 people or 5 people in a team fight. There's just a lot of scenarios where you can CC multiple targets. So you can use Ardent Sensor, he can use ZZ Rot. He's a very good user of Talisman. That's something that I pointed out before that I think puts him near the top, especially with the new Talisman buffs. He loves move speed. He's so fast that it allows you to get to people with the quickness, and it allows you to get out of fights, and it allows you to roam. It's just really, really good on him. It's a very, very powerful item on Rakan, his Talisman of Ascension. And it allows, if you speed everyone else up with Ascension, it allows them to catch up to you when you charm them. Because one of the big things with Rakan sometimes is, you know, if you flash Alt W and then quickness to go get to the backline, other people can't catch up to you. You're just too fast, is what they'll say sometimes. So if you Talisman them in, then they can actually catch up when you do that stuff. So Talisman, excellent item on him. And then you can run Ardent Sensor and Zeke's if you want to. You can also go for more tanky stuff. If you want to go for like a Knight's Vow, you can do that as well. So he does have some options. Now, Knight's Vow, you don't get the full benefit. You only get 6% instead of 12%. As I've talked about before in past videos, Knight's Vow is still excellent on champions that need to be tanky, even with the reduced passive. Okay, so I think that makes Rakan really good. He has good trading patterns in lane. He's going to be very, very good with the new coin item. And he just has wonderful engages and really good scaling with his ratios and really good item versatility. So I still think that Janna is better in a lot of situations. But if you need someone to get in there and get on that Twitch, I really like Rakan a lot for doing that. Because it's just pretty, like I said, it's reliable. You just press Alt, Talisman WN, or Flash WN, and you're going to hit that Twitch. You don't have to worry about missing barrels. You don't have to worry about, you know, a lot of things that could block you. You do have to worry about Janna, if Janna blocks you. But other than that, I think he's really good. Great ganks. And I'll go through and add in these pluses again after I make the video, before I publish it. Okay, so I think Rakan's really good. I think that Sona is still quite strong. Yeah, I mean, everything that I predicted before is still really good. The only problem with Sona is she's still very squishy and susceptible to assassins, and assassins are very, very popular right now. So, you know, if you run a Sona and they have something like a Fizz or something that gets really feds like 7-0 in lane, there's not a lot you can do about it. He's just going to murder people right in front of you. So she doesn't have the peeling power that Janna has in lane. Although she can be quite aggressive, and she probably scales harder than Janna or Rakan late game. You know, once you get your Athenes plus Ardent Censer plus Redemption, she's virtually unstoppable in team fights. So she's very, very good. She just has a little bit more problems with assassins than Rakan or Janna does. I mean, a nice thing about Rakan also, if there's an assassin, you just hit him with the quickness, right? So like Kassadin tries to jump on you, you just press R. He's going to be charmed, and then you just knock him up with your W, and hopefully enemy can kill you. Or enemy, you can kill the enemy. Your team can kill the enemy. So his R is really nice against assassins that try to jump on top of you. You can also stop with your R if you want to. Like if a Lee Sin is going in with his kick, I don't think it stops it from hitting you, because the little radius around, I don't know that interaction, actually. I'd probably have to look. He comes into contact with collision radius 200. So I'm wondering now if, like, Lee Sin is trying to kick onto me. Will that kick still connect, or will the charm pull him out of the air before he actually hits me with his kick? I don't know. I'd have to test that out. But I do know that if he's trying to kick someone else, I'm pretty sure if he tries to kick, like, someone behind you, or if Zach is trying to fly over your head to hit someone behind you, then you can touch him with the quickness and it'll knock them out of their flight. So he does have quite a bit of utility. Very good. Gragas can also do that. We'll talk about Gragas here in a second. But okay, so Sona's still very good. Best scaler in the game from the support position, as long as you feel like you can be safe. As long as they don't have too many assassins. Blitzcrank, talked about him a lot. Very powerful. He's too one-dimensional for my taste most of the time. But he's very good against these other Enchanter type of supports. So yeah, he's good. He's almost always S-class if you're really good with him. Okay, tier 2. There's a lot of shake-up here. So Gragas, I think, is the very top of my tier 2. If I'm going to run any tank, it's probably Gragas. And that seems weird, but I have been playing him a bit more, and I'll explain sort of what's up with Gragas. First and foremost, the best thing about Gragas is that he can run Ardent Censer. And he can run it well. So he does have AP ratios on virtually everything. They're not like outstanding massive AP ratios, but there's something. So one of the problems with running Ardent Censer on other tanks, and how that works is you run Ardent Censer plus Stoneborn Pact, if you didn't watch my 7.12 video, which means that whenever you crowd control someone, they get this little green thing over their head, a rune. If one of your allies attacks that person, then they get a heal for a small amount. The heal counts as a heal from you. So that triggers Ardent Censer. So basically what it comes down to, you crowd control someone. If anyone attacks that person, they get the Ardent Censer buff for like 30% attack speed and 30 on hit. So And he has 3 different ways to proc it. So he can use the barrel roll to proc it, he can use body slam to proc it, and he can use explosive cast to proc it. So there are a lot of different ways that he can proc the Stoneborn Pact. So he can go Ardent Censer. That's one thing that I like about him. He can go Zeke's, of course. He can go all the stuff that like Rakan goes. Except he's going to get full value out of Knight's Veil, and he's just a lot tankier than Rakan. So this Drunken Rage gives him extra tankiness. You have a lot of repeatable... sorry, I heard something weird over there. You have a lot of repeatable crowd control. Your body slam, once you get like 30 or 40%, you know, it's going to reduce this to like 8 seconds, and then this is going to reduce it for another 3 in a team fight. So he's going to have this up, you know, every 5 seconds or so, which is a 1-second stun that can hit multiple targets. So really good. Also, the explosive cask is really nice for pulling enemies to you. So you can hit the twitch, knock them back into your team, kill them. Or if someone's trying to dive onto your team and you need to disengage, you can throw it and do that with it. So it's a very versatile ability. It takes practice to learn the timing and how to aim it correctly, but it is very versatile. And then, of course, he has healing from Happy Hour, where it's just almost impossible to poke him out of lane, which is really nice because a lot of tanks can get poked out by like Sona or Nami or something early. And Gragas can usually hang in there off of Relic Shield and Happy Hour. So I think that makes it pretty good. And he has good wave clear. Body slams, good wave clear, and barrel rolls, pretty good. So overall, very versatile, good at engage, good at disengage, very tanky, good itemization. Gragas is my favorite overall tank right now. As I said, he's not as swift. He's not as guaranteed to get to that back line as someone like Rakan is if you really need to deal with the Twitch. But he's very good at just disrupting and being a pest, peeling, or engaging in fights. Overall. Now, Fiddlesticks is another one that I'm going to put up pretty high here. That's because he's the only AP support in the first couple of tiers I would recommend, because he has really good crowd control. So if you look at Fiddle, the main reason you play Fiddle is this right here. You press Q, you basically stun somebody for 2.25 seconds. There's no skill shot, you cannot miss it, just 100%. They're going to be out of commission for a very long time, unless they have a QSS or a McHale's or something like that. It's just a beast. This is kind of weak. If you send still, you get bonus movement speed. It's nice for your ult. Doesn't matter that much. Drain is actually quite a bit of damage. I mean, if you look at the full amount, it's 400 at level 1 if they stay in it. This is really good for like taking dragons or, you know, just trying to survive when someone dives on your AD carry. You just put a little bit of damage on them. So that's really nice. Heals for quite a bit. Does a lot of damage. Good stuff. Dark Wind is really good early on. You just press E and you basically just auto push the wave. Sometimes you get a couple of bounces and poke, but for the most part, you're just pushing the wave. In a team fight, it's great. Silences people, freaks them out, frustrates them. And then chaining this with Fear, so fear someone for 2.25 and then silence them for another 1.25. You're looking at up to 3.5 seconds of crowd control, which is disgusting. And then finally, his Crow Storm, of course, does, you know, like a zillion magic damage. Even if you don't, it does have a nice AP ratio on it, but you don't even need a lot of AP, and it's still just going to completely shatter everybody. So I think that makes him really strong. Like I said, Talisman would be an interesting choice on him. I'm interested to try that out. If I go Talisman, Ardent Censer, I think he could have some good team utility. I do like Hourglass on him. The problem is Hourglass is very expensive. It doesn't have a lot of team utility to it. Oh man, I wish they had the fall map again. I like that for Halloween or whatever. Oh, it's so cool. I wish they would do those themed Summoner's Rift maps again, but whatever. Anyways, there's a lot of the games I've realized that I do really well on Fiddle. Sometimes I don't even cast my ult hardly. Like, it's just rare. I just walk up and just fear people and they die. So if that's the case, why not just Ardent Censer? You know, you fear the people. You know, your team has 2.25 seconds to attack them. If they attack them, everyone gets the Ardent Censer buff. So I might just try Talisman Ardent Sensor on him. I don't know. That'd be an interesting playstyle. But anyways, regardless of however you want to build him or play him, I think that the fact that he has a point-click fear for 2.25 seconds is just awesome against melee champions and assassins. I mean, that'll just ruin Riven's day, or like a LeBlanc that tries to go in. He just crushes him, or Ahri crushes him. Anyone that's close. He obviously hates poke, but anyone that's going to get within 600 range of him, it's really good. Lucian. So yeah, he's my number one AP champion for those reasons. Thresh is very, very good right now. I mean, a lot of tier lists will have him up in the S class. He could be. He could deserve to be, but for me, it's really hard to ever put Thresh in S because he's the hardest support to play in the game. And so in a solo queue tier list like this, to me, it feels like people are going to mess him up a lot. So, you know, he can be very powerful. He does have a nice hook. You know, everyone knows Thresh. He has the hook. He has the flay. He's got the lantern. The itemization got a little bit better for him. The talisman change is going to be huge. That'll give him a lot of gold, and that lets him run into fights. So, I think he'll definitely switch from Relic Shield to Talisman. That also lets him run, instead of AD reds, he can run armor reds, which gives him more tankiness early on. So I think most people will probably switch over to a Talisman Ruby Sightstone build. And then I guess you would just go for, you could still go Zeke's on him if you wanted to. Knight's Vow is only half effective. Locket's pretty good. So yeah, I mean, he has some pretty good options. But yeah, Thresh, still a powerhouse. Lulu, I've got a bit lower. I just feel a little disenchanted with Lulu lately. She doesn't scale very well with plus healing and shielding. She feels pretty weak early on. She gets bullied out by Sona really hard in lane. She is a good pick into Rakan. Pretty good pick into Assassins. I just feel like she doesn't have as much power as she used to. But she is still very good for that polymorph. I mean, the difference between Fiddlesticks and Lulu is Lulu has better like early game harassment, and of course she has an ultimate that can save somebody, which is potentially really good. Her polymorph is also for 2.25 seconds, but they can still run around and polymorph to reposition. With Fear, they can't really move. They just sort of like wander backwards in place. They don't have as much control over where they go. You know, if you have a Hecarim running at your AD carry and you polymorph them, then he's just going to keep running at your AD carry, and then once he's finished, then he's going to still be in his face, still trying to kill him. Whereas Fear actually like makes them go the other direction. So Fear is a little bit stronger than Polymorph in my mind. Less versatile, because Polymorph can also turn into a huge attack speed steroid. So less versatile, but more powerful overall. And then Fiddlesticks just has the ultimate. That does a lot of damage. Rather than saving people, it just does more damage. And if you chain together Fear plus Silence, that's 3.5 seconds of CC instead of Lulu's 2.5 seconds, because Lulu's only crowd control is her polymorph. So they're both really good. But in general, if I want an enchanter, and a protector, I'm probably just gonna go Janna. Sona's also pretty good. Soraka's another one that's really powerful. The only problem with Soraka, and this has happened to me when I played Soraka a couple times, if someone rushes Executioner's Calling on the enemy team, it's so bad. Like, I've had the AD carry on the enemy team, literally, like, they got BF Sword, and then second item was Executioner's Calling. And that just hurts you so bad, because your entire kit is predicated on healing. If you can't heal, you're basically worthless as Soraka. You have very, very limited crowd control. I always have people tell me, well, what about her silence? Her silence is so good. Her silence is okay. It's okay, but people can walk out of it. It doesn't stop them from walking, unless they stand in it for too long, and then it does snare them, but it's okay. She has pretty good harassment lane with her Q, pretty good wave clear, great healing. If tanks do come back more and more, then she'll be a lot better. So if you have a Trundle with a Spirit Visage and a Zac with a Spirit Visage on your team, that increases their healing from Soraka by 30% also. So then that's really good. So if you have 2 or more tanks on your team, I think Soraka can be really good as long as the enemy team doesn't have her assassins. But once again, you are opening yourself up to Executioner's Calling. Now, Sona heals for not quite as much as Soraka, but it's similar late game. But Sona also puts shields on people, which is not reduced by Executioner's Calling with her W. And she has her Q, which does quite a bit of damage in team fights and buffs everyone else up. And she has her ultimate that can be like a game-breaking, like, AoE ultimate in a team fight if you stun like 3 people with it. So I think most of the time if I wanted to play Soraka, I'd probably just play Sona. But Soraka does have a time and a place. Tahm Kench. I moved him down quite a lot. I still love the catfish. I still think he's really powerful. I just think there are too many assassins right now, frankly. He just doesn't have enough crowd control to deal with them. So he is very good against like Ashe, Thresh, stuff like that. But if they have like a Katarina or a Fizz, just not a lot you can do about that. I had thought he would be a lot better with Zeke's Ardent Censer, but he doesn't really have the AP to justify Ardent Censer. He's got AP on his Tongue Lash, but it's pretty weak overall. And then Zeke's it's okay, but it's not quite as reliable as I would like for it to be. So he's all right. I mean, if you really want to counter like a Leona really hard and engage, or like a an Ashe or something like that, it can work. But I think in a lot of times there are probably going to be better options. Most likely Gragas. Another thing is in solo queue, it's really hard to leverage his ult because people just won't take it sometimes. Like the jungler just won't come down and use your ult. So I still think Kench can be a very powerful force. But if they have like an Ashe or a Thresh, I might just run like Janna and rush Mikhail's or something instead. But he is powerful. Okay, tier 3. I think Nami, I put her down here. I had her as high as the S class, but after playing her more, I do like her, but she just feels very underwhelming compared to Sona, Janna, even Lulu and Soraka. I mean, she's a safer version of Sona, but the cooldown is so long on your heal late game. I don't know. It's just a lot less reliable who it's bouncing to. Like, she can land bubbles. It just feels like I don't convert. Like, I just do not win games with Nami. I feel like she's powerful, but I just can't convert wins on her, and I'm not quite sure what that is. I think she doesn't scale very well with plus healing and shielding. It's just her wave. Just her W. E feels pretty lackluster later on in the game. The bubble can be powerful, and the ult can be powerful. Ult's pretty easy to sidestep in a lot of situations. I don't know. I just don't convert nearly as well, and I think it's because she just doesn't have as many tools in her toolkit, it feels like, as some of the other choices. She just doesn't have the raw power of Sona, and she doesn't have like the tools of Janna, or the reliability is another thing. They can dodge bubbles, they can dodge your wave. Doesn't have the reliability of someone like a Rakan. Okay, another newcomer here that I want to talk about for a little bit is Nunu. Now, I'm not quite confident enough to put him up in tier 2, but frankly, I would probably play Nunu more often than I would play, like, Thresh in the current meta. So, Nunu is like, I've got him in tier 3, but he could be as high as tier 2. And I'm going to have a Nunu guide coming out pretty soon, but the thing about Nunu here is that Ardent Censer and ZZ are both very good on him. So you can do the Ardent Censer buff with Stoneborn Pact off of your Ice Blast. And he likes the AP. I mean, he's got a 90% AP ratio on his E. He's got a 250% here. What? I don't know. Some ad started talking. What is that garbage? But anyways, he also has an AP ratio on the self-heal, which doesn't matter as much. Basically, his Ice Blast is a 0.9, though, and his ult has really good scaling. So, AP, good on him. He likes Ardent Censer. So, if you go Ardent Censer, Zeke's, and you Blood Boil somebody, that is massive, massive damage. So basically, the time when I would pick Nunu is if they have a really sort of passive, they either have like passive tanks or like passive pokey kind of lane or something like that, and you have a hyper carry and you run Nunu with this build, you're just gonna slash right through them. So I like Nunu into Janna for that reason. So if they have like a Janna, I don't know, like a Janna Ezreal or something on their team, just you're never going to be able to engage on them, and your team has like a Twitch or a Jinx or a Caitlyn or something like that, you can run Nunu into that and just farm it out in the lane, and your Blood Boil plus the fact that you can get Zeke's and Ardent Sensor means that you're absolutely going to shatter people. I mean, let me show you something here really quick. I think I showed this in my last video too. This is a Nunu game that I played. I've got a Jinx and a Vayne one. Just to kind of show you what I'm talking about here. I think this was the Jinx one. Let me see. Oh, buddy, welcome back to
Okay, here we go.
League of Legends. I'm the strategy professor. So let me mute this. Let me just show you what happens when you put all three of these together. And show you a clip here. So this is like textbook. Who is their bottom lane? I'm trying to remember. Okay, it's Lucian, who's a low scaling AD carry, and Sona, okay? So you get poked out early on, but they don't have that much hard engage. You know, they have Yasuo, Lucian, Riven. So nothing really that can get on the Jinx, like, flash on him. Because you got to remember, his ultimate can zone anyone that has to walk towards him out. Like, Riven and Yasuo can't run through Nunu's ultimate to get to the Jinx. You got to have something like a Fizz or a Kassadin or just something that can jump around his ult. That has wonderful zoning potential. Okay, so let's take a look here. So this is like a perfect game for it because we have a Jinx, they have a low damage AD carry, and they don't have any like big gap closing assassins. All right, we'll go forward just a little bit here. Okay, I'll turn on the sound and we'll just watch this for a second. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Where is Jinx? I need Jinx. Alright, focus up. Watch this. Oh my god. Do you see that damage? Holy crap. Okay. Alright, that's what Nunu does to hyper carry AD carries. A couple of seconds, like 25 on hit, roughly, something like that. So if we watch it again here. Okay. Alright, I put the Zeke's on her. Oh no! I accidentally clicked somewhere else. Okay. Do it one more time. Then we'll move on. I did the 34. That's what it was. Okay. So I've got the thing on her. Alright, press ult. It activates Zeke's on her. You see they have these little things over their head? These green things. That is the Stoneborn pack. So if she hits somebody, she's going to get like 30% extra attack speed. Blood Boil. So now she's Blood Boiled with Zeke's, with the Ardent Sensor buff on her. And you just watch just how fast she auto attacks in rocket form. It's really fast. And she just like basically one or two shots these people. She does 50% extra damage on Zeke's. You see that damage? Holy crap. So it doesn't matter if they have a Janna or a Lulu. I guess Lulu would be annoying if they could get to Jinx. But remember, Jinx has really long range. And Lulu's not running through my Ice Storm to go polymorph her. Jesus. Dude. That damage. So that is why I think that Nunu has the potential to be a really good counter pick to enchanters that, like, if the enemy team has an enchanter, like a Janna, a Sona, a Lulu, Soraka, something like that, and they don't have assassins, I think Nunu might be the counter pick because you just will straight up run them over in terms of your damage. If you have something like a Jinx, a Twitch, Draven, Kog'Maw, something like that. So I don't think he's for every composition. That's why I didn't rate him higher. But he is against very specialized comps where you have extremely higher scaling than they do. So I think that he's kind of sort of a new hotness pick for me. So don't pick him all the time, but if you have a hyper carry and they don't have a good way to get on her, and you're going to outscale the enemy, and you just want to farm it off in the lane, his laning phase is garbage. He's not going to do anything, but it's really hard to kill him because he can consume to heal himself, and he's going to get Relic Shield. So it is hard to kill him in the laning phase, and it's kind of hard to fight with him there too, because he can snowball, and it does pretty decent damage and lowers the attack speed of the AD carry, so he's pretty hard to trade with in lane too. But you're not going to kill people a lot of times. So if it's just a farm off lane, it can be pretty good. Karma's still alright. I don't win games with Karma. She was recently nerfed quite a lot. I mean, she's okay. Like, her mantra E is really powerful, but I just feel like everything else is pretty lackluster. She just doesn't do enough. Like, I would just rather run Sona. Like, Sona has similar, if not better, early game harass and much better scaling. She's not as safe as Karma is, because she doesn't have that big self-heal, and she's not as fast as Karma is. But I just think she's a lot more powerful. And Sona actually has an ultimate. You know, Karma's ultimate is basically just her shield, which is what you need anyways for fights. So, I don't know. I just think that if I wanted to play Karma, I would just play Sona most of the time. Zyra is still a very good AP champion. She can't really use Ardent Sensor that well. And she can't, she just doesn't have good synergy with a lot of the hot items right now that have come out. Like, she still has to get, like, Leandries and Void Staff, which is just a really feels bad kind of thing. Her items are all just very expensive. Like, she can take over a game, early game, if you really get ahead and start murdering people, but the problem is, she just is going to get outscaled by most people, so she's alright. Bard's another one who's, like, potentially very powerful. His itemization got hit a little bit on this patch, because he can't just go Redemption Lock it. I mean, I guess you can, but it's going to be a lot less effective. So his itemization is just really weird. I'm not even sure what you're supposed to go on him, honestly. I guess you could just go, like, Redemption Athenes or something on him, I suppose. I guess you could go Stoneborn Pact, because his auto attacks do apply a slow after 5 meets. You could go Stoneborn Pact plus Ardent Sensor if you want to. Now that you wouldn't have Thunderlords early on, which some people are not going to like, but it would allow you to get Ardent Sensor, which is better for the mid game. So it's up to you. It's up to you. But I mean, he's okay. He's okay. I just think he's really hard to play correctly in solo queue. His attack range is pretty low. He's all right. I mean, he can be powerful. Galio, after those after those nerfs, it just hurts him really bad. He's not going to do any damage. I just think they're better tanks. I just play Gragas most of the time. Alistar can be really powerful right now. He perhaps deserves to be a little bit higher up the list. He's someone who would love the coin item as well, so he can just close that gap and just run in there and initiate a fight. So I don't know. Maybe the new coin changes will make that a lot better on him. Relic Shield is still good. The health is good on him. We'll see. Alistar might be a little bit better if Talisman is really good on him, which it might be. For like a mobility boots, like just roam around and kill people Alistar. It might be pretty good. Vel'Koz and Brand are both, you know, AP supports that just don't do enough. They don't have enough utility. They don't scale with a lot of the really good items right now. They're okay, but the Enchanter supports are just going to murder them most of the time. So I think there are probably better choices. Zilean is an interesting choice. I don't know. I'm trying to think if Talisman could be okay on him too. If you run really far forward, like you just be so fast with like Talisman plus your E, then you could reset it and slow somebody. The thing about Zilean is you get that 5-second slow. I think isn't it 5 seconds? It's something ridiculous like that. It's like a 5-second slow if you E somebody for like 99%. If you like max E. I don't know. Maxing E is probably pretty goofy, but he doesn't. In other words, he doesn't offer hard crowd control, but he sure makes it that no one's gonna move For like, maybe it's 2.5 seconds. 5 seconds feels really excessive. I think that's Wither's time is like 5 seconds off of Nasus. But anyways, Zilean can be alright. Probably better choices, but he could be powerful. Yeah, let's go ahead and kill it. It's fine. So he could be good. Morgana's becoming hot again. I don't really get it. I mean, she does have a good bind with her Q if you can land it a lot. Black Shield is pretty good against Blitzcrank and Thresh, which is probably why she's being played in pro play some more. I don't know. She's alright. To me, her W and her ult just don't do anything, and that's really problematic. And she's an AP support that doesn't scale that well with plus healing and shielding. I mean, you do get some extra benefit on your Black Shield, but it's probably not going to matter that much. I don't know. She's okay. If you consistently land those Qs, she can be really good. Leona, okay, hard engaged champion. I'd rather just play probably Gragas, maybe Tahm Kench. I just feel like there are better options for engage. Even like Nautilus, there's better options than engage Leona. But I mean, she can be really powerful. I mean, she's a lot better in bronze and silver. But once you start playing in gold and higher, people will anticipate your engages and counter them in various ways. She has a really hard time against Janna as well, which is not good when Janna is like the best support right now. Trundle, not great as a support, although it does help that he can now chomp towers again. So he can help you take first tower a lot faster if you can push him out of lane. The Trundle's alright. I think he still has problems. He needs his pillar cooldown reduced quite a lot to where it used to be if he's going to be a top tier support again. Maokai, you could still do AP Maokai and be alright. I just think there are better options all the time. Teemo is interesting. I have won all 3 Teemo games that I've played, I'm pretty sure, that I've done for donations that people have gotten me to play. So he has a good early game with his harass and his blind. It's a really tough mid game because you can get caught out so easily. But then in the late game, once you get your Leandries plus Void Staff plus like Luden's Echo or something like that, then those mushrooms really, really hurt. And that can completely turn games around. So he's alright. I think he's in the realm of pseudo respectability, you know, somewhere in the middle to bottom of tier 3, I think is an appropriate place for him. Veigar's another one who potentially can be really good and do a lot of damage, but if you miss your stun or if they have ways to get out of your little circle, if they get caught in the middle, then he's not going to be as strong, but it could be alright. Misfortune support, she's okay. They've nerfed Black Cleaver a lot. They've nerfed a lot of aspects of her, but she can still be okay. Taric gets completely mowed over in the lane phase. He does have a good team fight later on. He has some good utility. But if you want someone who's just going to get like beaten up in the lane phase and just scale like mega hard into the late game, I would just play Nunu, honestly. And just go for that Blood Boil. Go for, yeah, I guess you just go for, yeah, just Blood Boil, and then you can use Zeke's plus Ardent Sensor. Probably better than Taric can. I feel like Nunu has more utility than Taric. I mean, Taric's shield, the heal, and his ultimate are all pretty good, but if you just want someone who's a punching bag in lane that's just going to crush people later, I just think Nunu would be the ticket there. Malzahar is okay. The rework hurt him a lot. Lux is okay. If you land a bind, you can murder people. AP supports just aren't in a great spot, I don't think, but overall it's okay. Jarvan could potentially be a good support. I haven't tried him out. But if you built him like tank, especially with new Talisman, actually I hadn't thought of that. New Talisman J4 could be really nasty. I mean, let me look at that real quick. That'll be the end of the video. Yeah, it's a pretty low cooldown. I mean, I guess if you can just run up and like dunk people, like with Talisman, just get boots of mobility and just run around and just run into the mid lane and just start dunking, like, it might be good. I don't know. I mean, your Dragon Strike here, pretty nice. I mean, that's good wave clear too. I mean, you just poke that right through the minions. Now it's gonna have like no scaling on it, but whatever. So yeah, I mean, you could just throw on a Zeke's, throw a Zeke's on him, and then you just make him your pinata. You just throw the Zeke's on him, Cataclysm, and then it's just like shooting fish in a barrel, basically. You could get Ardent with a lot of AP for your magic damage. AP Jarvan, baby. I don't know. I mean, the combination of being able to activate Zeke's, dunk them to hold them in place, and then Dragon Strike them with your Q to shred 26% of their armor is a pretty big deal. Slows nearby enemies. Okay, so the shield gives him a little bit of a... I don't know. I mean, this extra attack speed is pretty nice. So at 25% attack speed, man, it's almost like a Nunu. It's like half of a Nunu buff. It's sort of tanky. I mean, even the Relic Shield line, even if you don't go for the cute Talisman build, could work. What's his health and health regen? Is it high? Yeah, it's pretty high, actually. It's really high. The thing, like, you do get health regen, so you're not going to get the Relic Shield regen, but you do get health regen off of Talisman. And I was just talking about how Talisman health regen is trash, but if it's on a champion that's going to be taking early damage, that could be pretty nice. Let me see. Yeah, I mean, you do get some health regen here, and his base health regen is pretty high. Yeah, you get a little bit off of that. It's interesting. It's interesting. I'll have to try it out. I mean, I'll potentially put him up. I'll throw him in here. Throw him a little under KO or something. So he could be a sleeper. He could be sleeper strong as Jarvan support. I'll have to try it out. But anyways, that's going to be it. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed it. So enjoy this patch. There's a lot of diversity. There's more than we've probably seen. I mean, if you look here, we've got a tank. We don't have any AP up here. But in the top two tiers, you know, there's a pretty good representation of all kinds of different playstyles and champions. So I think that it's a pretty good time to be a support. So anyways, dang it. I really wanted this to be like an hour and a half. These always take 2 hours. They always take 2 hours. But anyways, hopefully you got a lot of good information out of there. Thank you very much. Let me know what you think in the comments. Who are your favorite supports right now? What are some cool ideas that you have in terms of like builds on some of these supports? And yeah, I'll see you next time. Have a great day.